Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by posting on the bulletin board of Borough Hall, by email to the Ridgewood News, the Record, and by submission to all persons entitled the same, as provided by law on the schedule including the date and time of this meeting. I would like to remind all members of the public that we have 3 fire exits. One behind me here, one behind me over here, and of course the one that you walked in. In addition, we're creating a video for the purpose of creating a record for this meeting. If any member wishes to speak, the public wishes to speak or be heard, all they need to do is identify themselves and be recorded by council. Roll call vote, please. Roll call, please. No vote yet.
Councilman Canito is absent.
Mayor Mignone is excused. He's out of the area.
And is that means for Councilman Canito?
He should be here. He said he was going to be late.
Terry Killian.
Here.
Ms. Boland is absent. Dr. Gerowitz.
Dr. Gerowitz is here.
Mr. Merman.
Here.
Mr. Grasso.
Here.
Mr. Gray. Mr. Caslin.
Here.
Mayor Mignone, you said is absent this evening.
That's correct.
Mr. Gibbons.
Here.
Mr. Sedaris.
Here. And Ms. Boland is excused as well. She has a zoning board meeting this evening.
Charles Smart.
Okay, first order of business is to approve the minutes of September 5th, 2018.
Chairman, I have one comment.
Yes, sir.
On the cover page, Kevin Spink should be deleted because I believe the cover page is for borough-related personnel.
Say that again.
Cover page of the minutes. On also present, Kevin Spink, architect. It was for an applicant. Cover page should be, cover page should be limited to borough-related, and I've already spoken to the recorder.
That's perfect. Anybody else have any comments? Doc?
Just in terms of minutes, those are signed, so they're good. The resolutions that were necessary.
I have them here. Well, we'll take care of that after the meeting.
I have something on page 5. The last line, where after the 250 feet, I know it was difficult for the secretary to hear, so it doesn't make sense. The word says so, it is 200 or 215, the whole tunnel. I think starting with the word so, and on the next page ending with the word cover, complete that.
Okay, yeah, I don't see a problem with that. Anything else?
I'll make a motion that the minutes be approved as amended.
Wait a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed, any abstain? So moved.
Moved by Mr. Merman, it was seconded by...
Oh, you want to...
No, it's okay. It's fine, but it's seconded by...
Mr. Castle. Okay, we have a memorialization for tonight. Slid it over here. Oh, that's right. I gave you my copy. Yep, that's all right. I'm good here. Okay, so these are corrections that you made, or no? I see some
Yellow highlights, they're not corrections,
Okay.
they're just checking points.
Does anybody have any corrections on the resolution? I have the one I gave you.
Just on the third recital, I think this is a typo in Kevin Spink's name.
Was that page 3?
Page 1. The third recital. Third whereas.
Anybody else? So a motion, so who can vote on this?
Okay, so it's on the last page.
Yeah.
All right, so I'll make a motion that the resolution be approved as correct.
Second by
Mr. Craig? Roll call.
Mr. Mignone. Mayor Mignone is absent. Mr. Craig?
Yes.
Mr. Merman?
Yes.
Mr. Grasso?
Yes.
Mr. Caslin?
Yes.
Mr. Gibbons?
Yes.
And Mrs. Severus?
Yes. I just have one question. Next to my name at the end of the resolution, there was a second X. Are there a second to the motion?
Say that again, I didn't hear you.
No, I just answered my own question. It's on the next page where, and there's no heading, but I just.
What happens when you...
When you hear yourself say it out loud, you know?
Okay, next up is, Finray. Okay, so, they've, withdrawn their application, Nalima?
I had multiple conversations with the applicant's attorney. The issue regarding the code had not been resolved. As you may remember, when we were here the last time, I believe it's the UCC that requires the unit to be a minimum square footage of 220, and I believe your code is 250 square feet. Either way, those units did not meet those requirements. So the applicant's attorney suggested that he be allowed to appear here this evening and then have, if the board was inclined to grant it, have the approval condition upon them going to the county or going to the Construction Board of Appeals. I did not agree with, I did think that that was a prudent approach. There's a code issue, it's not a zoning issue. So as a consequence, the application has been withdrawn.
Okay.
Okay.
Is there a chance we'll see him back sometime?
Once
That
we
doesn't-
make that even
okay.
bigger, the issue is that they needed a variation under the UCC.
Yes, I understand.
Right?
Yeah.
And it was very simple. What I said, go to the construction code official first, see if you can get the variation. Denied the bird construction board. You know,
Mhm.
I think that was the
Right.
procedure. They wanted to come here first, try and get approval, and then back in.
Your name might have come up once or twice in the conversation.
I'm sure it did. I'm sure it did. See,
Because I had several conversations as well. All right,
I'm
so,
biting my lip, okay.
next up, for completeness, we have Moe's Southwest Grill, 1061 Main Street, River Edge, block 1404, lot 3.01. Mr. Corrigan.
Yes,
is
hi,
here
Timothy
for-
Forreston here for the applicant.
Forrest. That's okay.
Mr. Chairman, before we begin, I need to recuse myself.
Yep, so, Mr. Caslin is going to be excused, and batting for Mr. Caslin will be Mr. Chaningo. Councilman Chaningo, welcome.
Good evening,
Chaningo.
Sorry for being late.
You're actually right on time.
All right. Glad to be on time.
Good night, Mr. Caslin, thank you. Okay, we're actually just getting into completeness at this point. Where is my planner hiding? There he is. Over there. Tom?
So, the application we have before us at this point is really for a food handler's license, which, per the ordinance, requires a site plan application. There are sign improvements proposed which do fully comply with the prior approval for this tenant space, which was previously occupied by the California Tortilla Restaurant. So the sign is compliant with regard to its dimensions and illumination. So again, we're really evaluating the merits of the food handler's license. In terms of compliance materials, I understand there's an issue about certain documentation having been submitted. We received a flurry of emails over the past couple weeks at which during some point, I think we received something that referenced the site plan or had enough information where we could intelligently review the application. It technically would be a required component, but the board is able to waive certain components of the checklist, so it would be up to the board as to whether they have enough information sufficient to make a decision tonight, but I think it would be my recommendation that there is enough to evaluate this particular matter.
And what about the sign?
The sign is fully compliant, as I said. There is information, enough information to have evaluated that. And there was, let's see, the dimensions are, it meets...
Well, you have to, let's just,
We're
so that
completing
we
this
have
right
the,
now,
we can approve that tonight as well.
Yeah, we have the specifications enough to evaluate.
Very good. Any questions? Have a motion to deem it complete?
Second.
Motion
Gray?
by Mr. Gray, seconded by
Mr.
Mr.
Merman?
Merman. Councilman Canito?
Yes.
Garabedian?
Yes.
Mr. Hurwitz?
Yes?
Mr. Merman?
Yes.
Mr. Grasso?
Yes.
Mr. Gray? Mr. Haslam recused himself. And abstention, Mr. Gibbons?
Yes.
And Mr. Severus?
Yes.
Okay. The motion passes, and we're through completeness, and now we're actually going to go straight to the hearing. Again, for the same applicant as Mo's Southwest Grill, 1061 Main Street, River Edge, New Jersey, lot 1404, lot 3.01, for a food handler's license and for a sign approval.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Timothy Corriston. Basically, it's a change in tenancy. Same number of seats, no sign variance required, which was always granted, already approved by the planner in the submission. We have submitted the proof of publication, and we've also submitted the seat plan, 54 seats, same as the other. So it's basically just a change in tenancy.
Just for the board's knowledge, just to remind you, any new food operation that comes before the borough, whether it's an existing space or not, has to come back for us just for site plan approval. And again, if they're going to change their sign, they have to look for that approval as well. That's why the applicant is here this evening. Any questions?
I make a couple of comments.
You can always make
Make a couple of comments.
Merman? No, we haven't started the hearing yet.
Okay, go ahead.
So let's let the applicant speak first, and then we'll go.
Well, I have Mr. Khan here. I can get some proffer from him if you'd like to.
Mr. Khan, please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Could you please state your full name for the record?
Right.
And it's spelled N-O-R-E-S-H.
Norrish.
Thank you, Mr. Khan. And your business address?
326, Route 18, East Brunswick. 1826.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Scott, I'm just going to ask you to just speak up when you talk.
Sure.
So we can all hear you.
Can I move
And so
can you move the microphone
recorded.
over?
Yeah.
Doesn't go too far.
All right. I'll just stop out. Budgets.
You can sit.
Council, do you want to mark the notice of publication and the receipt, or just acknowledge that you have them?
I don't normally mark them. I will acknowledge to the board that I did receive the stamped flight receipts from council along with the proof of publication. The notice appears to be in order, appears to be timely and consistent with the minimum requirements of the municipal limits.
Very good.
I'm just going to mark the sheet plan previously submitted as Exhibit 1, and then go on. Can you explain briefly your business experience and background and what you intend to do here in River Edge?
Sure. We have been in business as a franchisee for Mo's Southwest Grill since 2008. God willing, this restaurant will be our 10th restaurant in New Jersey, bringing Southwest Mexican burritos, tacos, quesadillas to the city, as well as operationally, I'm hands-on on a daily basis. Dominique is here with me as well. She's our director of operations, and the two of us handle the day-to-day of it. And then within the store, we will have a general manager, an assistant manager, and some shift leads that would run the operations.
And Am I correct that it's going to be 54 seats, the same as California Tortillas? And you've already submitted your sign to the town, and then you modified it so it meets with the current, previous grant of variance?
Yes.
correct? That's all right.
Okay.
Just for the record, should we, can you give an overview as to the hours of operation and I guess
Sure.
the type of restaurant service?
Yeah. It's typically a fast casual restaurant that will open up at about 11 a.m. up to 9 p.m. Sunday through Thursday, and then on Friday and Saturday, typically we're open until 10 p.m.
Can you repeat the closing hour again?
9 p.m.
9 p.m.
And then on the
On
weekend?
Friday and Saturday, we close at 10 p.m.
Okay.
Okay.
You know what the, I'm sorry.
Let me just finish from Mr. Barron's, any, report?
Well, I had submitted a letter of denial to the applicant, which basically talked about, at one point it talked about the deviations of the parking issue, which they're now compliant with. So the only other issue really is that the fact that they have to be here by virtue of requesting a food handler's license. So there are no compliance issues to speak of at this point, but that an applicant has to come here for a food handler's license gives the board and the borough an opportunity to understand the nature of the use and also discuss or evaluate whether there are any other site issues going on and to explore and address those if there are. I'm not aware of any at the moment that would need to be pointed out to the applicant or landlord.
Now, Mr. Gressler.
Okay, then.
All right.
You mentioned that, if I understand this correctly, California Tortilla obtained a variance for the sign.
Yes. Dimensions, the same that everybody else has got, 3 by 20?
The original approval had a typical sign dimension of 2 feet high by 20 feet wide and 40 square feet. California Tortilla stayed within the parameter of 40 square feet but had a taller sign because of its trademark logo. Moe's similarly has a somewhat tall sign, making it slender, it tails off, so it's a little bit taller than average, but it's compliant with that prior approval and is within that 40 square foot threshold.
All right, these are channel letters mounted on the building, or it's a light box sign?
I believe they're channel based on the exhibits.
I can ask, Mr. Khan if you'd like. Can you explain the?
Yes, the Moe's will be one piece, and the Southwest Grill aspect will be channel letter.
And just to add one thing, to be clear, there are no window graphics or signs being proposed because that would trigger
Yes, that's right.
an issue. Okay, just for the record.
Mr. Harris? Councilman Canino?
Nothing. Thank you.
Dr. Gerwitz?
Question in terms of the kitchen, there'll be no additional, no changes in terms of stoves requiring additional grease traps and hoods and stuff like that?
So we are going to keep their existing hoods, existing grease traps. With equipment, we do use a little bit different grills than they do, so, but ours are, they produce a lot more smoke than ours has no issue with that. So the grease trap that's currently there, the hood that's currently there is much larger than the wood.
And the fire suppression system's remaining in
Yes.
place and intact and is functional?
And we'll have all that tested.
And it'll be subject to a permit.
I'm saying there's no changes being done.
And of course, should be subject to our engineer's review, and if we require the TV, the lines coming in or anything, you'll have to do that, and whatever his requirements are.
That's fine.
I do have one additional question. Is there delivery service?
So that's a good question. We don't do delivery service per se as doing deliveries, but however, we do a lot of catering. It's maybe one a day or two a day that we have.
Truck on site.
No, we don't bring any large stuff.
So you're not parked there overnight?
No, there's no, our landlord already put that in our lease, that we cannot put any vehicle there. It would be a manager between their car, and then these days, third-party apps are something that we do use. So there's Uber drivers that deliver food now, with Uber Eats. A normal person coming in, parking in a parking spot, they would come in, pick up a Uber Eat order, and take it to her address.
What a wonderful age.
Mr. Gibbons?
Good.
Mr. Mervyn?
Let's go back to the sign. Sign lighting is from within,
That's correct. There's LED lights inside the sign.
inside. When do you propose to shut off the sign lighting?
I don't know if there's any ordinance for the town, that you guys have. Typically, and I mean, we have timers, so whatever, if you guys disagree with this, we can put whatever time we like. But usually, at 1 a.m., our lights go out.
I think the ordinance is 11 p.m.
11 p.m. I can change it to 11 p.m., no problem.
There is a stamp, I'm not 100% sure what that is, but
I'm just typically telling you in our previous restaurant what we do. But, if it's at 11 p.m., I have no problem.
So can I safely say you'll adhere to whatever the ordinance is?
Yes, absolutely. We'll have a timer there that'll,
Okay. Just want to be on record. Let's go to the parking. I have to admit, I'm a little confused. According to the planner's report, it looks like where you're proposing, you have 60 seats, and it looks like with the prior, you had 54 seats?
No, we
No, we
reduced
have-
it.
You reduced it.
Simply
So there's no parking
No,
change?
there's no variances, parking, signs, anything.
Eliminate, well, I'm going by.
And we,
Okay.
I spoke to the planner and we worked it out, and we said we would comply, and we reflected on the plan, we submitted no variances, parking, we're
Okay.
within the last resolution that was
Okay.
approved back in here's, 2018.
Right, okay. So, parking's fine, you don't, require any variance, as you said? Right.
Your dream, no variance.
I'm done. Mr. Chairman, may I suggest, if we have a motion, I'll put it in a motion. The applicant has submitted a overhead color area view of the basic site, at least his portion, which is labeled site map in the upper left-hand corner. I understand the ordinance requires a site plan. I'd like to suggest that the board consider utilizing or accepting the site map in lieu of the site plan.
I think that's reasonable,
Okay.
considering the fact that they're basically coming in under somebody else's approval, and the approvals usually stay with the buildings anyway. So, there's no changes, so certainly I'm amenable to that.
As we both know, because we were involved in the original approvals, that site plan is huge.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I'm fine with that, rest of the board, everybody's okay with that? Okay, and it was recommended by our planner, so.
Yeah, I just wanted to get that. Mr. Carson,
Yes.
you have submitted a combination seating plan and equipment layout.
Yes.
I noticed that the submitter, the architect, is from Georgia.
I don't think you have to be, the stamp is, go ahead, the stamp is gonna be, I believe they usually stamp it.
You saying that he's qualified in New Jersey?
He's done all my stores, we never had any.
Okay,
We'll get some clarification for you.
yes. Many architects, especially in fast food, have multiple registrations or a national certification, which covers them. By the way, submit to the board, I propose, or I suggest, you submit to the board his national certification, or have another design professional certified in New Jersey stamp the drawing. I in no way will approve a foreign, out-of-state design professional to come before our board for my approval.
Understood.
I'll
That's
put
a good
that in the
catch.
motion too. Huh?
Good catch. I didn't even notice that.
Mr. Merman, do you want the resolution to be withheld?
Well, exactly where I was gonna go. All right, so we'll do it now. We can go through the resolution. And if I make the motion, the resolution is not to be signed. We can vote it, not to be signed until we receive, or until council receives that proof.
We'll have it before the next
I'm
meeting.
sure you'll give it to me tomorrow.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's not gonna be drawn up until the next meeting anyway.
The one thing I did want to ask, and I think we've done it with past, if the resolution passes pending signature, is it okay for the building department to start issuing permits so we can start construction, even though we know it is at all risk?
At your risk, you can go tomorrow if you want.
Thank you.
Didn't even with the building department?
No.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Fine. I think that's about all I have. We did note, I believe, you in your opening statement that we have basically 3 sign changes. The two monument signs,
Yes.
and
Which
the
have been
placket,
pre-approved.
on the 2 monuments, plus the one over the establishment.
Yes, no additional
No,
signs.
okay.
We understand that if we have additional signs, it's likely to be subject to a variance. Subject to the requirements.
Likewise, if you increase the seating, you're coming back, correct?
Yes.
Okay, because when I look at your architect's layout, he shows a revision where he removes seats.
Yes. Right.
Okay, and it was well noted by me, and sometimes, not pointing fingers, later on, those seats reappear.
Mr. Khan is well aware of
Okay.
the prior approvals and the parking situation as detailed in Mr. Barron's letter.
Okay, I'll leave the statement as it is. They have a tendency to reappear at some point, and there's going to be some eyes on it.
Record is clear.
Okay,
Thank you.
I think I'm done.
Great country we live in. Anybody else on the board? Okay, I'm gonna move to, on the motion open to the public, please.
Motion.
Dr. Gerwitz. Second? Second. All in favor? Any opposed, any abstaining? This is the public's opportunity. Would you like to say anything? Then, seeing nobody else in the public, I ask for a motion to close the public.
Motion made.
Second. All in favor? Any opposed, any abstaining? Okay. At this point, unless there's any other questions from the board, I'm ready to entertain a motion on this application.
All right, I'll make a motion that we accept the school handlers license application, which essentially, sign-wise changes 3 signs, 2 placards on monument signs already on site, and the one over the establishment. Likewise, it's noted that there is no additional parking requirement because the seats have been reduced to, I believe it's 54?
Yeah.
54. And that the applicant is going to resubmit his,
Exhibit 1, seating chart.
your Exhibit 1? Okay, Exhibit 1, which is the establishment layout for seating and equipment. He's going to resubmit it showing that the current architect, which is out of state, does have authority to practice in New Jersey, or he will substitute another design professional who's so licensed in New Jersey. And that the resolution not be signed until the board council can confirm that we've received that.
I got that?
Every last letter.
Do I have a second on that motion?
Second.
Councilman?
Mr. Domingo?
Roll call vote, please.
Councilman Canito?
Yes.
Chair Killian?
Yes.
Dr. Burowitz?
Yes.
Mr. Merman?
Yes?
Mr. Rosner?
Yes.
Mr. Gray?
Yes.
Mr. Townsend recused himself. Mr. Gibbons?
Yes.
Yes.
Did I say in the motion that we're going to accept the site map in lieu of the site plan?
You did not.
But we have it.
But we
Well,
have
you
it.
have it in there?
Mhm.
Okay.
Thank you. Connor, welcome to the Belleville River Edge.
Yes.
We hope that number 10 is your most successful store that you're on. And
Yes, it's my lucky number, so
you're coming into a beautiful community that likes to support our home team, so welcome to the town.
Right?
Yep.
So it makes a good town.
Mr. Corson, thank you so much.
Yes.
Good evening. Always a pleasure.
Mr. Cox before me.
Just some quick housekeeping. Again, as I had mentioned earlier in the meeting, before we started, Sunday is River Edge Day at Memorial Park. And I believe that the volunteers, including everybody on this board, will be served a piece of cake. Is that correct, Councilman?
As I understand it, it's tradition, so, yeah.
So if you're around and you want to go down there, probably around 2 o'clock is typically when they get everybody together and they give their speech. You're welcome to attend and again partake in the volunteer cake. We have 2 medical parking applications on track. They're both going from traditional use to medical, which triggers a parking variance for medical. So that's coming up at probably maybe the next meeting, I'm not sure. Close, right, Tom?
The next meeting or two, I would say.
Okay. And we still haven't heard back from the New Jersey Historical Society, but I know that they're getting ready to come in eventually. And I know that the Barrow is going to be coming in soon. I know that you have your meeting next week or the week after? Tuesday. So if anybody wants to see what the Barrow's up to with the new community center, I understand some significant changes were just recently made. You're welcome to come to that meeting. Otherwise, you can see Stephanie, and Stephanie will have a copy. You can review it there. Otherwise, we'll be on the same timeline as a typical application. We'll get those plans ahead of time so we can review them. Again, this board only acts as an advisory for that particular application, but typically the Borough does take strong into consideration what we have to say. Anybody else have anything?
So we will have a review of the plans here officially, or no,
Yes, officially.
It does officially come before us?
Mm-hmm. It's a...
No, I'm saying it's a courtesy that they do
advise
come
only,
before us.
yes. Anybody? I'll entertain a motion to close.
We'll make a motion to close.
Dr. Gerowitz? Mr. Craig? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, any
No.
abstained?
You're outvoted.
Thank you, everybody, for coming.
Okay.
Ladies, thank you for
Thank you.
being...